and I'd like to recognize Mr. Allred. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I really want to thank our panel for their excellent testimony and your excellent written testimony. I think that many of my colleagues have covered very ably a lot of the ground that I wanted to discuss. But I want to begin by noting that I have not been privy to the intelligence around this incident. But I agree with Mr. Brzezinski that fact that bounties are even plausibly been placed on American servicemen and women shows that our policy towards Russia is at the very least completely ineffective at deterring their aggression. And we know, as General Nicholson has noted, that the Russians have provided arms and support to the Taliban that have been used against American service members. So whether we accept this intelligence or not, or whether the president was briefed on this particular instance or not, the president and this administration are clearly on notice as to Russian intentions against us in Afghanistan, and certainly may have American blood directly on their hands. And last November for Thanksgiving, I was in Afghanistan visiting our embassy, Bagram, went to some of our forward operating bases where our Rangers are training and working with the next generation of Afghani officers. And when I think about those young service members who are working with those young Afghans, and I think of our president repeatedly praising Vladimir Putin, offering ventilators, saying that he believes Putin over our intelligence agencies, and of course trying to get them readmitted to the G7, among many other things that we could list. It's incomprehensible, and I can find no strategic goal in it. I have no rationale behind it, and so I'm left wondering what could possibly be motivating these actions. But my role, and I think our role on this committee, is to try and inform policy and inform our constituents and inform the American people as to what we can do. And while this president may not act, we know that Congress has acted several times during this term to try and take steps, and we were willing to do more. And so I do want to ask, what has worked for us in a multilateral and multinational approach in the past to check Russian aggression? What steps have worked? And are those mechanisms still effective? Is it necessary for us to find some other mechanisms? And I'll ask that to the entire panel, perhaps beginning with Dr. Wallander.
Thank you for your question. We do have some evidence of what is effective. In the summer of 2014, when Russia provided surface-to-air missiles to the so-called separatists in Ukraine, and that missile was used to shoot down the Malaysian airliners number 17, it was very quickly exposed publicly, and the Europeans, in coordination with the United States, imposed significant sanctions on the Russian economy. And the Russians both withdrew those capabilities and stopped, they didn't stop their intervention, but they stopped the escalation of delivery of equipment that they'd been engaged in and pulled it back and went more covert and more deniable, and that affected their operational effectiveness. And so they are sensitive to what we do and the costs we impose. Those costs vary by circumstance. I can't tell you, I can't lay out a map of what it would be in every circumstance. My colleagues have suggested some, we've talked about some. But I think the important answer for you is that we know that the Kremlin is cost sensitive and does respond when we are clear and firm in our policies.
Mr. Morell, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree 100%.
Mr. Brzezinski?
So I kind of reiterate this way: when we are committed to our values, that denies opportunity to autocrats like Putin to kind of undercut political cohesion, to undercut the cohesion among our allies. It reduces his motivation to kind of push against liberal democracy and replace it with authoritarian nationalism. When we're steadfast in our military resolve, Putin will be more cautious. We've demonstrated that repeatedly. When we're committed to our allies and partners, If we don't abandon them in the field or withdraw our forces from their territories, Putin is less likely to push against them. And if we're steadfast in leveraging our economic power, Putin doesn't have any capability to match that, but we have to exercise it.
Well, my time is up, but General, thank you for your service, and I'm sorry we didn't get a chance for you to weigh in. If you have anything you want to add, perhaps the chairman will allow you a few seconds.
It's fine if you have anything to add, sir.
Thanks, Chairman. I wanted to add that war is more like a wrestling match than a chess game. And so while discussions of confidence levels and assessments are going on the ground, leaders are taking actions immediately to protect our service members and to respond and to fill in any gaps. If we don't know with confidence, well, why not? Well, let's try to cover that gap. So I'd say our teammates, our colleagues that are out there on the front lines right now, they're doing everything they can to protect our service members, and they're adapting to this. The one thing I'd add on responding is back to the power of the alliance. So the legitimacy that comes with 41 nations saying, hey, this is unacceptable. You don't threaten the U.S. and its coalition partners on the ground. That does have power, and it shouldn't be underestimated. Thank you for the question, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Well said.